Hi, I'm Dan Small.
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 No, I'm the real Dan Small. Welcome to Deer Hunt, Wisconsin 2021. You know, Wisconsin's gun deer season offers hunters the opportunity to reconnect with friends, enjoy the excitement of a white-tailed deer hunt, bring home some venison, and maybe even connect with a trophy buck. Coming up, we'll look at helping novices get started in the sport with a mentored hunt. We'll feature successful hunts from last season, learn why copper bullets outperform lead, take you hunting for shed antlers, and as always, we'll provide a hunting forecast for each region of the state. All that and more straight ahead on Deer Hunt, Wisconsin 2021. A trail camera can be a useful scouting tool, and you never know what you're going to find when you pull your memory card. My friend and co-producer Mark LaBarbera, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, shares his experience using trail cameras for scouting and to choose locations to hunt in order to make the most of precious time afield.
I'll admit it, sometimes I don't feel like getting up early or even going out on my hunting blind near the scrape I set up with a kiwik and estrus doe scent. I think other people might feel that way from time to time. But I always wonder, what would I have seen? Well, now I know. I set up trail cameras at my blinds so I can see what's happening when I'm not there. Usually I see deer coming in and checking out the licking branch and the scent wick, both night and day. Occasionally, it's like a ghost through the darkness and the rain. Other critters come through too. I'd refresh it with a fresh scent. Sometimes I'd drive in with the UTV, dip the scent wick, and keep going. And sometimes my dog followed, but the deer didn't seem to mind her scent, judging from the videos that I've seen after we've been through there. Yearlings, nubbin bucks with bumps where antlers will grow in future years, and older bucks came to visit. Young does and old long-nosed does at times alert and curious about the scent, the blind, or the camera, but normally just relax, move along this trail in clear view of my empty blind.
Again this year, deer hunting regulations are combined with regulations for small game, waterfowl, and turkey hunting in one booklet, which you can pick up at any licensed vendor or download from the DNR website. There are just a few changes in this year's regulations. The list of counties closed to baiting and feeding deer changes depending on where new cases of chronic wasting disease are found. Check the DNR website for updates. The list of counties that offer an antlerless only holiday hunt and/or extended archery and crossbow season has also changed. More on those later in the show. And there are no buck-only deer management units for this year. You can purchase your license, select your antlerless tags, now called harvest authorizations, online through the Go Wild system or from a licensing agent. With each deer hunting license, you'll receive one buck harvest authorization valid in any unit statewide, and one or more farmland zone antlerless deer harvest authorizations valid in the deer management unit and the land type, public or private, of your choice. You no longer have to validate a carcass tag in the field or attach it to your deer, but while hunting you must still carry proof that you have a license and the appropriate harvest authorizations for the area you're hunting and the type of deer, buck or antlerless, you shoot. Proof can be in the form of a Go Wild conservation card, your authenticated Wisconsin driver's license, a printed copy of your license and harvest authorizations, or a digital copy of these documents displayed on a smartphone or tablet. With each license they purchase, youth hunters 17 and under will receive a junior antlerless deer tag valid for taking one antlerless deer in any unit statewide. Youth hunters are not required to specify the zone or unit, but they must indicate whether they plan to hunt private or public access land. There are special opportunities for Class A or Class C disabled hunters as well. Bonus antlerless harvest authorizations went on sale in August, and they may be sold out for some units and land types. They may be purchased at the rate of one per day until the unit is sold out or the season ends. All deer taken must be registered by 5 p.m. on the day after harvest, and you'll need your harvest authorization number to do that. You can register a deer easily online or by phone. Instructions are printed right on the harvest authorization tag. You may also register a deer at participating walk-in stations. We'll have a link on our Deer Hunt Wisconsin Facebook page, or look for one of these deer registration signs. Most bow hunters and many gun hunters now hunt from elevated stands for several reasons. A stand can get you above the deer's line of sight. It provides a good view of your hunting area, and if the wind is in your favor, it can help you avoid detection from a deer's sense of smell as well. Let's join Michael Murphy of Whitetail Sanctuary Solutions as he offers my son John some advice on where to locate an elevated stand and how to hunt from one.
That's a good location anyway. I think it's a great location, actually. And then you got an easy way to get to your stands where you're not walking through the perimeter or the center of your properties. You're going the perimeters.
Why again did we want to choose this location?
By studying the cameras last year, we saw this was a major travel corridor between the bedding area and the food plots. Make sure that you're using your cameras appropriately so you can really determine the deer movement and how they're coming in and out of your stand location. The other thing when we set the stand up is we had it facing west because it's mainly a morning stand. Okay, so what that allows is you're not looking into the sun, but yet when the deer are coming towards you, they're looking into the sun. They'll break up that silhouette of you in that tree.
Now, I shot my first deer out of a tree stand that basically consisted of 6 screw-in tree steps and a couple boards. Wasn't very safe. It was effective, but you know, modern tree stands have come a long way since then.
The most important thing when you're in that stand is that you're safe. You need to pick one that you're comfortable in because you're going to be sitting for a long period of time. And the worst thing is getting one you're not comfortable in, because if you're fidgeting, you're sure to get busted. You should have a rope, you know, to take your weapon up with you. You should never be climbing up into a tree stand with the weapon, whether it's a bow or a gun, on your back. Make sure also that you have safety harnesses that are approved. And finally, one of the most important things is make sure that you have and you use a lifeline while you're entering and exiting your stand, because that's when most falls happen.
What other factors should I consider when placing my stand?
Say you're a right-handed bow hunter and you have a deer coming in over your right-hand shoulder. That's going to be an extremely difficult shot for you to make. So you need to practice when you get your stand up. Make sure that it is a comfortable shot so that you have that perfect shot when you're in that hunting situation. And also, that dry run is a great time to determine if you have any limbs that need to be trimmed to open up those shooting lanes.
Do I want to just clear everything so that I can see everything all around me?
No, you definitely do not want to do that. You want to break up your silhouette in the stand. You should be leaving limbs in the area so that it breaks up your silhouette. But another really good practice is when you're ready to look or turn, put your head back against the tree so it's tight up against the tree, and then slowly turn your head. That'll break up your silhouette.
This year, the 9-day firearms deer season runs from November 20th through the 28th. The muzzleloader season runs for 10 days immediately following the gun season, November 29th through December 8th. In all Metro Zone subunits, the firearms season runs through December 8th. And some Metro Zone subunits offer free antlerless harvest authorization, so check the regulations for these changes before you hunt. The 4-day statewide December antlerless deer hunt will run from December 9th through the 12th. The antlerless only holiday hunt runs from December 24th through January 1st in all or part of the farmland zone counties shown on this map. To participate, you or someone in your party must have an unused antlerless harvest authorization for the unit where you're hunting. The Hunting Mentorship Program allows hunters of any age to obtain a license and hunt without first completing a hunter education course. Regardless of age, the hunter must stay within arm's reach of a mentor, possess an appropriate hunting license and tags, and comply with all hunting laws. The mentor must be at least 18 years of age and is subject to other restrictions outlined in the Hunting Regulations booklet. In addition to the hunting mentorship program, Wisconsin has increased efforts to recruit, retain, and reactivate hunters through Learn to Hunt and Learn to Hunt for Food programs run by sportsmen's clubs and other local groups. These programs train novice adult hunters with demonstrations, hands-on field instruction, and a one-on-one hunting outing with an experienced mentor. No licenses or hunter education certification is needed to participate. These programs are also looking for volunteer mentors, and we'll tell you where to find more information later in the show. Now let's join young Sydney Gradle and her mentor, Monica Spaney, president of Accessibility Wisconsin, for Sydney's first deer hunt on the Gradle family property during this year's October Youth Hunt.
It's fun. It's my first time hunting. I thought it was nice and breezy, and I thought it was cool, and it felt relaxing. Monica's really nice because she helps me a lot.
I'm working with Sydney as a mentor because I was mentored throughout the years of my hunting experience, and this is my way to give back. But the mentoring satisfaction comes from seeing the growth in the youth that I'm working with, going from knowing some basics to going, this is her aha moment.
I was excited to go hunting because I really wanted to see a deer and an albino deer, because we have an albino that sticks around our house, and I like looking at them because they're really pretty.
Her parents also support this process.
Yes, hunting is a family activity that we all like to enjoy together. I grew up hunting with my father and my brothers, and I would like to continue that tradition. Sydney wanted to become a deer hunter because she has watched me go out hunting in the mornings and the evenings, and she's excited when I come home with a deer or a turkey because she enjoys eating it. She knows that it's part of the way of life to provide for the family. And
I would think that I would be a good hunter someday, and that I'd at least get one deer.
I hope that she learns out of this whole hunting experience that how important it is for conservation of animals and being ethical in the way you hunt and being responsible and enjoying it.
So it's all about being outdoors, enjoying the outdoors, understanding that the outdoors is something precious to all of us.
With a mild winter last year and below average harvests in both 2019 and 2020, Wisconsin deer hunters can look forward to increased harvest opportunities around the state this year. Although more deer will be taken on private land, our state's 7 million acres of public land offer hunters a wide range of habitat with great hunting possibilities. Here's a forecast for the upcoming gun deer season provided by DNR biologists from around the state. Northern Wisconsin offers a wide range of deer habitat and deer hunting opportunities. The variety of habitat also means that deer numbers vary across the region. Some areas can sustain more deer than others. Public land is abundant, but private land tends to hold more deer per square mile. Last winter was mild across much of the north. Most areas didn't have deep snow all winter long, and there were only brief periods of extremely cold weather. The Lake Superior Snowbelt counties did get enough snow to put them in the moderate category, but overall, last winter was a reprieve from the harsher weather of the previous 2 years. Most of the northern deer management units had an increased buck harvest last season, and most areas had good fawn production this spring. Every deer management unit has some antlerless tags, but some units, especially for public land permits, will sell out prior to the gun season. Severe windstorms in 2019 blew down a lot of mature trees, allowing for thick regrowth of brush, which provides good bedding cover. Acorn production will likely be spotty, so plan to scout prior to hunting to find areas where deer are bedding and feeding. Most of the Northeast District experienced the 7th mild winter in a row, and there was strong fawn production throughout the region this year. Deer numbers are high region-wide, but populations vary dramatically from 1 square mile to the next. Habitat ranges from northern hardwood forests in Oconto and Marinette counties to the flatter agricultural and wetlands complexes of Winnebago, Fond du Lac, and Calumet counties. Overbrowsing of young trees is a problem in the central counties of the district, including Shawano, Outagamie, Wapaka, Waushara, Green Lake, and Marquette counties, where sustainable forestry and future habitat quality are still a major concern. The Northeast is in the second year of intensive CWD testing, and there are several CWD surveillance areas in the district. Hunters are encouraged to submit the heads of adult deer for testing at DNR offices and designated collection sites. Let's check back with Mark LaBarber to see if he's having any luck. Who knows, maybe he fell asleep in the blind.
The trail camera told me which blind had the most activity, so that's where I decided to spend most of my time. When I finally did go, I did get outside, and the result was this buck following a string of does, one at first and then two, and they all follow the same path. So I lined up there and was ready. When that buck stepped into view for a few seconds, I put him in the crosshairs, took the shot, and he took off. I thought I had a good shot. Sure enough, he didn't go more than 50 yards.
That sure is a nice buck, and it's proof that scouting and using trail cameras can really pay off. We'll check in with Mark later in the show to hear the rest of the story. Trail cameras can also help you identify individual deer and sometimes follow their development over several years. Our videographer and editor, Dave Roll, keeps tabs on deer in his area, including this buck he's been watching for 3 years now. And this guy's unmistakable because somehow he lost most of his tail as a youngster. It's no secret that whitetail bucks drop their antlers every year in winter or early spring and then grow a new set over the summer. For some hunters, finding a shed antler is every bit as exciting as shooting a trophy buck, especially if they later kill that buck whose antler they found. Let's join my son John again as he goes shed antler hunting with the guy who wrote the book on the subject, outdoor writer and guide Joe Shedd, and yes, that's his real name.
Antlers are pretty amazing structures. So they're true bone. They're the only bone in the animal kingdom that grows outside of an animal's body. You know, they're made of calcium and phosphorus. As far as deer antlers, they probably are going to start growing around April, and by the end of August, early September, they have grown to their full extent and they've calcified and hardened, and then the bucks will rub off this protective velvet that grows in the summertime.
Man, these are open woods. So where are you more likely to find a shed, like where there's food or bedding?
You know, they can be anywhere really. The food is more dispersed. You know, when you're looking at brush, I mean, it's kind of everywhere, whereas a bedding area, a specific spot that a deer might be. So I'm always kind of more bed oriented.
Okay. How fast are you normally walking through the woods?
My pace is dictated by how fast my eyes can pick apart what I'm seeing, you know, and if it's more open, you can walk a little faster. Or if there's snow on the ground and the only thing you're going to see is, you know, an antler sticking up out of the snow, I walk a little faster. Whereas in the springtime, like today, when everything just looks like antlers, you got to go a little slower. And I always keep my head kind of scanning back and forth, and my feet go, you know, at the pace where I can still decipher what I'm looking at. And you know, it's another thing is you got to kind of focus on what you're doing. Don't just be like I'm out in the woods taking a nice walk. I mean, honestly, like, you know, really think about what you're seeing, you know, and concentrate on what you're doing. And you'll have a lot of times where you're scanning back and forth, and all of a sudden you do like this double take, like, wait, what did I just see? And you look back, and then it pops out at you, and there's an antler sitting there, and or just like that.
What? No
right in the trail.
No way.
Look at that.
Oh my God.
Oh man, look at that. Sweet shit. Check this thing out.
Yeah, that's a beauty. Really nice.
Yeah, it's a decent sized buck. Certainly not his first antler.
Yeah.
Very
Boy,
cool.
you know, I wonder if the other pair.
Well,
the other
right,
piece
you
of the
know.
pair
I
is
mean,
around here.
sometimes they're together, sometimes they're nearby, sometimes they're just not. But we'll definitely check around and
nice
see if
find.
yeah, thanks.
I think I'd like to find one too. I mean, there's a trail here. Maybe the other half is down the road here.
Yeah, check it out. I'll keep going on the trail and see if we get lucky. We got this little, cluster of balsams here, John, and a lot of times the deer use these for shelter. I mean, we're on the south edge right here, so if a deer wanted to lay right here, with a north wind, he'd have this protection in his back, kind of blocking the wind, and then he can just lay here and soak up the radiant sun, and it's a little bit warmer. And as you do more shed hunting, you're gonna walk blindly through the woods and stumble on an antler, but the more you do it, you've got to just kind of try to put the odds in your favor and really try to understand why the deer are where they are and what they're doing. So this is a spot that I would specifically look at rather than just walking blindly around. This is something that I would be drawn to try to look
more
for
time
sheds.
here than in the swamp.
Yep, and in the wintertime they're going to spend most of their time either eating or resting, and so probably half their time resting. So they do just bed in these areas quite for hours at a time.
Oh, this is quite a trail.
Yeah, so they've definitely hammered it down. So you can see here, the deer have been browsing on this as they've been walking down the trail. You can see a lot of these branches are nipped. Yeah. So, that indicates that deer have been in here and actively feeding.
Well, deer kind of eat as they walk.
Yeah, they're natural browsers. So,
Yeah.
They've been in here, so hopefully there's some sheds. So a place like this, we've got a little cedar swamp down below, and then we're up on the south-facing hillside here that's going to get a lot of sun exposure. It's got some young balsam in here, so it's got a lot of good elements going on. A good bedding spot with brush right here for them to eat. You can see they've been eating here.
Yo, I found one.
You really?
No, for real. I really found one. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. What do you got?
Right here.
Sure that's not a stick?
Definitely not a stick.
Oh man. Well, that's been there for a while.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Wow. Oh, look at that.
Whoa.
That's a nice one.
Cool. It's not a bad buck.
Well, 8-pointer. 488.
Northern Wisconsin buck. Nice. Yeah. So how far away were you when you saw it?
It's funny. I was standing right here on top of it, basically.
Pretty much standing.
And yeah, I was kind of getting hungry, and I had a little beef jerky in my backpack, and just kind of standing there. I was like, "This is a nice spot." And I looked. It was at my foot. And I was just
wow.
Like,
wow. Is that your first shed?
This is my first shed.
That's awesome,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's pretty
Thanks
cool.
for taking me out. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah.
Well, we really lucked out on the weather. I mean, I wouldn't want to be doing this in the mud and the rain.
Yeah. No, it's cleared up. So,
yeah.
And the snow's all gone earlier this year. So.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Deer numbers continue to increase across the Southern District, and last season's harvest was up 19% from 2019. That trend should continue this year. Habitat varies from the wooded ridges and coulees of the Southwest to the flat, productive farmlands of the South Central counties. Deer are more abundant in the western and central counties, but there are opportunities to take multiple deer and quality bucks throughout the region. Most deer in the Southern District are harvested on private property, which makes up more than 90% of the landscape. However, excellent deer hunting can also be found on county, state, and federal lands as well. Hunters who scout in advance to locate food sources and travel routes will have the best chances of success. Baiting and feeding are now prohibited in all 18 counties of the district. The rolling valleys, fertile farmland, and wooded ridges of west central Wisconsin offer some of the most productive deer habitat found anywhere. A mild winter combined with abundant agricultural crops and natural food sources have all contributed to good fawn production, excellent antler growth, and an overall healthy herd. The region produces more trophy buck record book entries than just about anywhere in the country. Most of the region is in private ownership, but scattered public hunting areas offer quality hunting for those willing to scout prior to the season. Hunters in Jackson and surrounding counties should be careful not to shoot an elk by mistake. And with a high prevalence of CWD in the region, baiting regulations are subject to change, so hunters should check the DNR website regularly for updates. More and more bow hunters are now using crossbows every year. And in fact, in Wisconsin, the crossbow harvest surpassed the regular archery harvest several years ago, and it looks like that trend is going to continue. It's now legal for anyone to hunt with a crossbow in Wisconsin. To do so, you'll need a crossbow license, a $3 crossbow upgrade to your archery license, or a conservation patron license, which includes all your deer hunting permissions. Let's join Cuba City dentist Matt Andrews and his son Braden for a crossbow hunt.
My dad came and asked me if I wanted to go hunting, and I said sure. So we went to the shop, we got the Ranger, and we drove out to the field behind our house. And we got out, we got the crossbow, and we got in the blind, we put our windows up, and we were all settled down for a little bit. Then 5 minutes later, a big doe popped out. And my dad said, put the 40-yard pin on it. So I put the 40-yard pin on it, and I shot. And I thought I missed, but my dad said, no, you got it, it went right through. So then I was really excited, and we watched the doe run to the edge of the woods, and it dropped. Probably about a half hour later, a big buck came out. My dad said, that's a big buck, you gotta get that. And it was right at the edge of the woods, right next to the doe was. It was trying to get the doe to get up. My dad said, I think that's 40 yards. So I got the bow back up, and I put the 40-yard pin on it, and I shot. And it just ran into the woods, and I don't know if I hit it or not. My dad thought he saw it stumble in the woods, but we didn't know for sure. So we got out of the stand, and we went and we got the arrow where I shot it. And my dad said, oh, I think you missed, buddy, because there was no blood or anything on the arrow. But we took a little peek in the woods to see if maybe we got the buck. But we didn't find it the first time. But then we went back to the shop, and he looked at the arrow. There's hair on it, and it smelled like deer, but there was no blood on it. The next morning, we went out with my grandpas. When we formed like a line, we were going right through the woods, and we saw the buck, and my grandpa said, there it is.
And of course, everyone does the mad dash through the timber to try to, get a peek at him. And, he was just piled up. Probably was, it probably expired last night.
And I was so excited because I didn't think that we got the buck at all. And I ran up to it, and we took pictures with it.
So, I'm really proud of him. It was a heck of a shot on both the buck and the doe. I was more excited for that moment, for that deer, than any I've shot over the years.
So another thing I learned from my dad is you always want to go back and check to see if you did hit it, because we had no idea, and some people would just not even go and check, and they would just think, oh, I missed it, well, maybe next time.
Once your deer is down, the next step is to field dress it, get it cooled down, and then either process it yourself or take it to a pro to get it done. We featured these next two segments on last year's show, but your response was so positive, we thought it was a good idea to air them again. Here's a quick look at how I field dress a deer, and then we'll head over to Leroy Meats in Fox Lake to let Steve Christian take over from there.
There are a number of ways to field dress a deer. We've got a nice adult buck and a good-sized doe here, and I'll show you how I do it. And the first cut is actually right around the anal opening. Now you can just cut off the genitals if you want to. If you remove them like this, you'll actually be able to pull them back through the body cavity with the rest of the entrails. We'll come up to the brisket and find the bottom of the breastbone, and I'm going to make a puncture, not too deep. You take the gut hook, find that opening, and it's basically just like unzipping the deer. Now, back to the knife, and I'm going to go up into the rib cage and cut the diaphragm. You want to cut that as close to the rib cage as possible. And while I'm here, I'm going to go up and loosen the lungs and the heart. Now we finish cutting around the diaphragm, and we should be able to roll all the entrails right out. That's all there is to it.
So here we have a carcass of probably a 1.5-year doe, and I'm going to show you guys how to go about breaking this down without using a meat saw of any sort. You just want to follow that line right down. You have the backbone that goes right down the center of the animal. So if you take your knife right down the backbone, kind of pull it with your thumb and it'll kind of expose the back side. And just keep taking your knife. There's a pelvis bone right here. So you just take your knife and you follow that bone down. And if you're coming towards the cavity, eventually you're going to hit a ball joint. And that ball joint exposes itself right here. So the idea is to get behind that ball joint, and there's a little tendon that holds this into the socket. So you got to pop that tendon, get around that hook, come back down, come back towards that. You can see how that then exposes itself. So you get right in between there, and you just follow that bone straight down. So you want to go right in between that brisket, and you just keep pulling it, and it will start to separate. Follow it nice, right down that length of the animal. You make a slit, and you go ahead and turn your knife, go straight down the backbone, and you go ahead and you spin the animal. So you just want to get your knife right on top of those bones where the tenderloin was laying, slowly moving yourself down the carcass. And you just keep on working down, using your thumb to always pull the meat away from the bone, and the back strap comes out right to the base of the neck. You find the vertebrae on the animal here, and you get the ribs cut up to it, and you go ahead and just put your knife right in the middle of that vertebrae, and then it separates. And go ahead and cut that straight through, a little tug down, and it pops right off. Come right down that vertebrae, and we're going to just follow that straight up. You just keep working your knife right over them, and then you get all that veins and all that glands out of there. If you just get in between the connective tissue, you just pull that off right down to the center of the animal. So if you take your knife and you go straight down from this tip, you will hit the femur bone. And then you just turn your knife, follow that bone all the way down to where that hip joint was. Take your knife straight down, right till you hit that bone again. Take your knife and just dip it in and just follow that bone around. That joint naturally opens up. So you just take your knife real slowly and you'll see how it pulls apart straight down. So this is the Achilles tendon coming up. You just go ahead and cut that right at the base, and you just go ahead and trim that. And it should really only take about 2 or 3 cuts because that whole chunk of meat can come off at once. It does have a little bit of a cap on it, so if you just take your fingers and you just follow that seam straight back and you just cut it straight down. And then we prefer to butterfly just to make it a little bit larger portion. So when you butterfly, You don't go all the way through initially. You go right down to the table, just letting a real thin piece of meat. Then go ahead and duplicate that same width and go straight through, open it up, and then you have a nice butterfly steak. The fat cap will just pull right off, exposing the silver skin. And I just get my knife started underneath, go ahead and grab it, and then just guide your knife down. So I'm going to go ahead, cut 3/4 of an inch halfway through, then all the way through. So you just take your knife around that fat cap, find that elbow, you go right down to the bone, and you just follow that bone. So here's the clod. If you just follow that across, and you start down one side, just like you're pulling the back straps off the back, you just follow that bone, go ahead and turn your knife, and then you can trim that meat right off that bone. Go ahead and do it on the other side. So those are some scrumptious bites ready for the grill.
Let's check back with Mark LaBarbera now to learn what happened next with that nice buck he shot.
I was feeling pretty good when I hung the buck at the cabin and then delivered it to my buddy David Collins at Outdoor Creations. With all the pandemic safety standards he set up, I didn't worry about catching COVID-19 when I delivered the buck. He even offered masks for customers. His brother explained how they work with the DNR if a hunter wants his deer tested for CWD. I wasn't worried. My deer looked healthy, but testing was free, so I said, sure, let me know how it tests. David called in about 48 hours to say my venison was ready to be picked up. I moved it from his freezer to mine. A couple weeks later, I heard from the DNR. My Western Lafayette County deer tested positive. I was shocked. There's no law against eating a CWD positive deer, but DNR recommends throwing it out just to be safe. So that's what I did.
Not every hunter would discard the venison from a CWD positive deer, but the experts tell us it's the prudent thing to do. Mark's experience is a sobering reminder that we should all have our deer tested. It's free and it's easy, and self-service kiosks and testing stations are located all around the state. If you haven't already made the switch from lead bullets to copper, why not make this the year you go to NonToxic Ammo? I started shooting copper bullets last year, and I'm glad I did. This fall, I attended a NonToxic Ammo workshop at the North Bristol Sportsman's Club in Dane County, presented by the National Wildlife Federation, and it was a real eye-opener.
There were many of us involved over the years doing work investigating the relationship between lead, scavenging wildlife, and how that interacts and interplays with our hunting and angling background. And so as biologists, we were interested in the questions of how much lead can there possibly be in a carcass, for example. So we were all doing these programs, but we have to share this on a landscape scale. I badgered them for long enough and said we need to co-lead this program called the North American NonLed Partnership and take this information to our fellow hunters so they can make informed decisions as it pertains to wildlife health. We don't support litigation or legislation at the NonLed Partnership. We made that clear. What we're selling is a notion of possibility and potential where we as sportsmen and women and hunters retain and carry that conservation ethic by leading as hunters and anglers with the science. Only hunters can solve this problem. If you're going to use lead-based ammunition to shoot an animal, domestic or wild, whose remains become a part of the food chain, that's when there's a potential for lead exposure. And you can disrupt that pathway of potential exposure by either removing the remains from the field or using non-lead. It's that simple. The National Wildlife Federation contacted us, and actually they had a program very similar to ours, but when they asked how they could help with all of their chapters in all the different states, we want to build this from the ground up. So they were perfectly situated and nice enough to ask us out here so that we could have this engagement with Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, and hopefully we'll continue it along every other state we can.
So when we started our work, thinking about lead-free landscapes is what we call our campaign.
I think one of the things that attracted us most to the NonLead Partnership was the same vision. We've always thought it should be done voluntarily by sportsmen and women, educating themselves, understanding what the impacts are, and then making those choices. So when we heard that they were already doing that, we saw a natural partnership and gravitated naturally over to them. Today at this demo, we'll put a bullet on paper. You know, it's important that you paper your ammo before you go to the field. You might have bumped your scope. Or if you switch brands of ammo, could be the same caliber, same grain weight, it's not going to paper the same. Same thing if you're switching to non-lead. You want to be sure and paper it. Know your tools before you get out there and have confidence. So we got lead on the left, non-lead on the right. Notice the difference in penetration. Now, I'm not saying that that's everything when you're hunting, but there's a lot of power there because it's not stripped of its weight as it moves through the medium. So today we'll demonstrate lead and non-lead side by side in the same medium, and then the range will go cold, we'll walk up, everybody will get a chance to see the bullets as after they hit, and then we'll recover them, we'll take them back, and then we'll weigh the bullets so we can get the percentage of mass retained. That's the non-lead. And then we'll collect the fragments, and that's the eye-opener. When people walk up and they see the lead will be on the left and the copper will be on the right, and you pull out that single copper bullet and it's the beautifully mushroom slug, and then you go back and weigh it, it's going to be 99% of its original weight. And then you pick up the remainder of the lead bullet and all the fragments, and you will see it. People will exclaim, "I had no idea." That's right, because they're small fragments. They say, "Why didn't I ever see that before?" Go to your butcher shop, see if they ever see lead in their grinder. They do. Once people hear about this and they see this demo and they think about it with respect to wildlife, a common question is, am I eating it? But people get real jumpy when you talk about their health, because their health is their business. We can talk about wildlife. So we're very careful, and we just say, here are the facts. There are studies, numerous studies that have been done to count how many fragments there are in the gut pile all the way down to the packaged meat. Take that information and make your own decision. We're not telling you what to think there. The future of hunting depends on us taking all of this new science, using it and adapting the way we take care of our environment.
That's our show for this year. You'll find links for more information on the Deer Hunt Wisconsin Facebook page, and all the segments from this year's show are posted on our Deer Hunt Wisconsin YouTube channel. I'm Dan Small. Thanks for joining us. Have a safe and successful deer season. I'm the real Dan Small. Don't forget it.